everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along on this ride with us. How we doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. Fall season's over. Starting to think about the winter workouts that'll be coming up in January. We have the 7th and 8th grade clinic coming up on November 8th and November 15th. So, if you look at it, it's kind of seems like it's busier now than it was all summer long.
Well, not doing the travel ball thing obviously has a big impact on everything for you. Want to talk a little bit about these clinics?
Yeah, well, at the high school, what we do is we reach out to 7th and 8th graders and bring them in and do one of the clinics is for position players. And then the following clinic is for pitchers and catchers. And it's basically to introduce them into the program, show them what we do. They meet the coaching staff. We run them through a bunch of drills, stuff like that. And try and get, their interest up in the school and in the program.
So it's twofold in terms of they get some good instruction and some teaching, and you guys are doing some scouting.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so we give them a little bit of instruction. We see, what kind of talent is out there. And, again, like I said, hopefully they like the program and we can bring them in as players in the next couple of years.
Oh, that sounds like a win-win situation. You also have a big trip coming up that I know you're very excited about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So when I was at the ABCA convention last January, I ran into a gentleman. His name is Rob Haney, and he happens to be the chairman for the youth and travel committees for the ABCA, and we had a little bit of a conversation, and he asked me if I was interested, said that last year, that would be 2022, they held their first, what they called their Youth Baseball Summit, and he asked me if I'd be interested in being part of the one in 2023, and I jumped on it, and here we are. Now we're a week away.
That's very exciting. I guess at this point you don't necessarily know 100% what to expect out of this, but should be a great roundtable, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's it's set up in such a way that we get in Tuesday, then Tuesday night we have like a dinner meeting, then Wednesday and Thursday. It's like you said, it's discussing the state of affairs in youth baseball and how we could try and maybe fix some of the problems that there are. And it's really 2 days worth of discussion, which I'm interested in.
Oh, that's cool. Are there problems with youth baseball? I haven't heard of any.
No, me neither. I mean, it seems like everything's just sailing along beautifully. So I guess we won't have much to talk about. So
yeah, not too much. Obviously, being facetious, as that is somewhat the basis of this whole podcast. So so looking forward to getting your reports back on that. And I assume you're going to try to hook up with a few people while you're out there to get some mini conversations on tape.
No, I don't know if I'll do that. I don't know if I'll have time to do that. I mean, it would be nice to rub elbows with them, get to know people for maybe future shows. But believe it or not, it seems to be packed full of meetings and stuff like that where probably won't be much time to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure you will make an attempt at least, since that's what you're good at, is making those connections and setting up for, like I said, if not that day, but down the road. And we'll have a lot more interesting conversations coming down the pike. Right.
Hopefully I could convince Rob Haney. I've been chasing him, trying to get him to come on the show because I think he would be a great guest to have. And I shouldn't say chasing him. That's not right for me to say it that way. He, he's a busy guy. He's involved in many, many things. So maybe that connection there will, be able to get him on the show. So... Sure. I'm really excited. It's being held in Kauffman Stadium. The Kansas City Royals are actually hosting this thing. So it's pretty interesting.
Nice. That should be a great experience. Looking forward to hearing about that. Speaking of interesting guests and things we want to look forward to, let's talk a little bit about today's guest. We have with us Mr. Ryan Forrest, and he is the pitching coach at Boston College, a great program out there in Massachusetts. And he's somebody that, different type of guest than what we've had before, as he's not really involved with youth programs at this point in terms of what we normally think of as youth. Obviously, college players are young for you and me. But, yeah, it's hopefully going to be a good conversation and get some good tips and tricks by somebody who has been doing it for a while and is, on the cutting edge of what kids should be looking to do to take care of themselves.
Yeah, he comes to us by way of the Air Force Academy, which is pretty cool. We had Mike Kazlausky on last year, and now his former pitching coach, Ryan Forrest, really just signed on with Boston College within the last month or so. So he's new to that program, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we seem to be on a little bit of a theme lately where we're talking to pitching guys. We talked to Wayne Mazzoni, and he was a pitching coach for very many years, and now we're going to talk to another pitching coach. So,
yeah, and obviously, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about, I'm sure will transfer over to position players because a lot of it has to do with training and arm care and focus and things like that. So, really looking forward to hear what Ryan has to say. And without further ado, let's bring on Boston College pitching coach, Ryan Forrest. So how are we doing tonight, Ryan?
Can't complain. Actually, just got off the baseball field. We had our first inter squad tonight of the fall, so it was good to get back out there and strap it on and compete a little bit, especially after the long summer.
How'd the boys do?
It was the first inter squad. So, there were some really good things. There was obviously a lot of things that we needed to work on with the new coaching staff here, but overall, I think there was some steps in the right direction that we're excited about, and we definitely have some talent here. So excited to continue with the fall and see how we progress.
Yeah, so it's like you had mentioned, it's a whole new coaching staff. Are all of you guys like kind of interconnected? Did you all know each other, and that's kind of how it was put together?
It's actually kind of funny. So no, not really. Coach Interdonato actually texted me. I was in Alabama recruiting, and he just said, like, here's my number in the event that I need to get a hold of you. And the next day he got announced as the head coach at BC here. And he called me immediately after asking if I'd be interested. Said, to be honest, I was at the Air Force Academy. I was like, to be honest, no, not right now. I'm not really interested. The Air Force Academy, Colorado's home. I thoroughly enjoyed what I did there. Being able to work with a group of guys that have signed up to do something bigger than themselves and lead, serve, and fight for our country. And he's like, okay, that's fair. He called me again the next day and just like, hey, are you interested? I said, okay, I'll never close a door. And definitely wanted to get on a call with him. And, we started talking a little bit and got on a Zoom with him, and then was able to get on a Zoom with the pitchers and really enjoyed what he had to say and his vision for the program, and really enjoyed talking to our pitchers here and what they were looking for in a pitching coach. And that's kind of how it all went down. So it was really fast how it went down too. So, right. For me, I'm drinking out of a fire hose right now a little bit still too.
And I could almost guarantee that Coach Interdonato is not anything like Coach Kaz.
No. Well, they're similar in ways in which they're going to care about the kids and they're going to love the kids. But yeah, they're a little bit different. And I'm excited to learn from Coach Interdonato, and obviously learned a lot from Kaz in my time at the Air Force Academy as well.
Yeah, we had Kaz on the show a while. What was it, Dave? About a year ago.
I'm not sure if it was that far back, but a while back, and he really, he sticks with you. He's definitely, it was an inspiring conversation.
Oh, no doubt. And, for him, he loves the Air Force Academy. He bleeds blue. He loves his country. And I'm sure that was shown in your show when he was on there.
Absolutely. Makes you want to run through a brick wall for him.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So let's get into a little bit about your background here. Okay. So you played at Creighton and you played at the University of Maine?
Yes, sir.
And then you went on to coach at the University of Maine, Millersville, Mississippi College, the Air Force Academy, and now Boston College.
Yep. That's it's been my road. For me as a coach, everybody says that you're gonna, if this is the industry in which you want to get into, you're going to be moving around and you're going to be figuring it out, and obviously eating ramen noodles and I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be at the places that I've been at and have success. And again, it's the people that I've been around, and certainly the coaches I've been around, and then the players.
So what made you make the jump from being a college player, high-level college player, to wanting to become a coach? Was it something that you intended to do, or was it something that just happened?
It was more so something that just happened. I knew in some capacity I wanted to be involved in the game. I didn't know exactly how. So when I graduated from college, I actually was a JV baseball coach at the local high school that was right down the road from me. And I enjoyed it, but I was like, maybe I want to try doing like a front office type role, maybe try something in professional baseball. And I ended up applying for an internship with the Pittsburgh Pirates, doing video analysis and scouting with them. And that was like an unbelievable experience for me, just having the chance to integrate myself in a big league locker room, because I was actually in Pittsburgh, getting a chance to see how the coaching staff prepares on a day-to-day basis, how those players prepare on a day-to-day basis, and be a little bit of part of the success that they've had in scouting the upcoming opponents. Thoroughly enjoyed it. However, I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to be behind a computer just watching video and looking at data. So that was kind of where my mind shifted a little bit in terms of, I think I want to be more on the field, helping, developing guys, but more so developing relationships that are going to last for a lifetime with these guys.
Well, I don't know, Dave. What do you think? I mean, he started out as JV high school coach. I mean, so that means that there's still a little bit of promise for us, isn't it? Dave and I are both JV coaches.
I think he started off just a couple years younger than we did, so I'm not really sure if that comes into play.
What's the big deal? A couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hadn't really thought about necessarily being a coach as a career as you were in school. Did you? But you said that you were interested in trying to get into like the office work at the time.
Yep.
What is that? What you was your major in, like sports administration?
No, my major is actually in journalism with an English minor. However, when I ended up getting into coaching, I did go back and get my master's in sports administration.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Let's start talking a little bit about pitching and what you do with your players as far as being a pitching coach. Just give us a little idea. Give us like a description of your coaching style.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a pretty laid-back guy, to be honest. However, the guys know and understand that when it's time to get to work, it's time to work. But basically on a day-to-day basis, our guys will get a practice plan and a program from me, in which is tailored and individualized to them, all the way from their dynamic warm-up that they're doing, their band work that they're doing, their plyo work that they're doing, all the way through their throwing program to their recovery. And that's all dictated based upon how they move, what their deficiencies are, what we think in which they need to get better. And then each and every day is actually broken up into different levels of intent. So we have our recovery days, we have our hybrid B days, which are our long toss days. We have our hybrid A, which are max intent days. We have our bullpen days, which are max intent days. We have our game days, which are obviously max intent days. And those are all built into their week, in which, it promotes them, working on their craft, developing arm strength, continuing to work on their different pitches, but also recovery as well, because that's a big piece. Because there's a lot of there's a lot of kids that are at, even at this level still, that have never had a structured throwing program, and they would just go out and long toss every day. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand that you have to build in those recovery days. You have to build in those off days as well, because those are just as important.
Now, something that you just mentioned that I'd like to have you explain to our listeners. You mentioned several times about max intent. Okay.
Yep.
Could you give us a little explanation on that so people understand what that means?
Yeah. So max intent is they are going at 90 to 100% of what they have that day. So bullpens for us, I try to tell them that I want it to be as close to game-like as possible. The game is obviously the game, and that'll speak for itself. But those max intent days are, again, 90 to 100% of what they have that day.
Okay, so if I could kind of try and sum that up a little bit, so let's use long toss, right? So on their way out is not necessarily max intent throws on your way out, right? It's smooth, it's easy,
Yep.
Okay? But on your way back in, those are max intent throws.
Yeah, so it's smooth and easy going out. However, on those max intent days, I would like for you to go back as far as you possibly can. And then, like you were getting to right there, is when we are working in, it is max intent pull downs coming in at 100%.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I just, like I said, our audience are usually lower level coaches. And when we use terms like that, I like to have an explanation so that everybody understands what we're talking about, where we're coming from.
For sure.
All right. So when you talk about the recovery days, then are there any days that are completely off, or are you just doing lower level intensity?
Yes. So you will have one off day a week when we're in our in-season program. When we're in our off-season program or individual period, we will always have 2 built-in off days, in which I tell the guys I don't want them to touch a baseball. So right now, with where we're at in our in-season program, as we just started our fall season today, is your off day from throwing will always be the day after your bullpen. So the way in which we do it here is, say you're starting on Friday. You make your start on Friday. Saturday will be a recovery day, in which I would like for you to get the arm moving a little bit. Nothing more than 60 feet, 30 throws at 50 to 60% effort. Sunday will always be their long toss day, which is a hybrid B day. Monday will be another recovery day. Tuesday will be their bullpen day. Wednesday will be off. And then Thursday will be a light extension with a short box day. So that's basically what a week looks like for our Friday starter. Obviously, with bullpen guys, it could get a little bit more tricky. But in the fall, everything's pretty much scripted for the most part. So I can kind of dictate when they're going to be throwing. But in the spring with the bullpen guys, it could be a little bit more tricky, just depending on their workload and when they're throwing, when they threw last. So
you say on their off days they don't pick up a ball at all. So
Yep.
I'm assuming they're doing like maybe some band work on those days.
Yeah, so I require them to do some band work and some recovery work. We use shoulder tubes here as well. I know people are pretty familiar with those. If not, it's very similar to a body blade. It's just to promote blood flow and try to speed up that recovery process a little bit.
Okay. And how important is running in your pitching program?
That's a good question. We don't run at all.
Really?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah. No.
So that I need you to explain.
Yeah. So
It means no running, Jimmy.
that's right. So I look back at like when I was in college, it was like, oh, hey, after you throw, go run 20 poles. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't want like,
Man, I hate running, man.
This is the last thing I honestly want to do. But there is a lot of research out there that says long distance running is actually a detriment to pitchers. And it's funny because like you look at the body type of a cross country runner compared to the body type of maybe a sprinter. It's and you look at sprinting compared to pitching, where it's short, quick, explosive bursts. So if we do some running, it will be short sprint work. It might be some agility work, but the long distance running, we don't do at all.
Boy, that's interesting. I got to tell you, because that's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. And in fact, like from a conditioning standpoint, and this is just my own theory, is that our guys will get enough conditioning work through their plyo program, through their throwing program, through their weightlifting program, that I think is way more beneficial to their development as pitchers and their longevity as pitchers than being like, oh, hey, you just threw, go run 20 poles.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. And I love to get stuff like that out there that's contrary to what the general belief is. So it's another option for people to look at.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I would say from a coaching standpoint, it's much more fun to make kids sprint than to do those long poles, because they could take their time doing what they want. So
yeah, for sure. And actually too, so this is new to me being at this level, but I actually don't even run their conditioning. Our strength and conditioning coach does all their speed and agility here. Yeah. So that's one nice thing for me that's been taken off my plate since being here at BC.
Yeah.
Nice. And that was that the same general program you had at the Air Force Academy?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously you didn't see any drop off in the player's ability to go deep or anything like that. So you're carrying it over, and listen, to me, it makes all sense in the world. It's something as a player and when I first started coaching, I could never really get a straight answer from anybody when I would see after somebody pitched that, they'd be out in the outfield running poles, even like in the middle of a game, they'd be on the outside fence. And my thought is, did he mouth off to you, or, what's going on? And I never really got an answer that made sense to me as to, you got to do it to get the blood back into the legs. And what?
Yeah. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
No, in fact, so this is what I like for our guys to do. And this has been something I've worked with our strength coaches with, is take today, for example. We had our first inter squad. The guys that threw in the inter squad today are actually down lifting right now, and they're getting their big, heavy lift in. And then tomorrow, they're going to have more of a recovery type lift. So there's a lot of people out there that have said, like, hey, the day after, you need to get your big, heavy lift in where you're moving weight, where in fact, that's not the case anymore by no means, because we want to treat that full day as a recovery day. So right. Instead of being like, okay, yeah, hey, I'm taking a recovery day on my arm, but I'm going to go get a big lift in, and I'm trying to move all this weight, and in fact, you're delaying that recovery process by doing that.
Makes sense. Really does. And it was interesting, like you said, with the strength and conditioning. I know at our high school, we're fortunate enough that we have somebody that comes in and does strength and conditioning with our players, that us coaches don't have to do it. And I agree with you. It's something that, just from a coaching standpoint, I don't know enough about it to be able to give our players a good program to follow. So let's bring in somebody who knows better than we do.
No doubt. They're the professionals, and I work hand in hand with our strength and conditioning coach too. Because I want to know what they're doing in there. But yeah, they're the professionals, and they bounce ideas off of me, and I'm like, hey, that's your show there. So you're not coming in telling me what to do in the bullpen or what to do in game. So I'm going to stay out of your way in the weight room there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Interesting.
Okay. Now, this is something that I want to get into, because this is a pet peeve with me, and I'm hoping that you could explain this to everybody. Let's talk about, because everything we hear nowadays with younger players, players that are wanting to play in college, it's all about velocity. And every kid you talk to, first thing that they'll tell you is, hey, coach, I'm throwing 85. Hey, coach, I'm throwing, whatever. It's all about velocity. But, obviously at your level, pitchers have to be throwing at a certain velocity. I understand that, okay? But how important, or should I say, what's more important in your view, velocity, understanding that the velocity has to be what it is, or command?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Can I say both?
Let me just clarify that a little bit. So you have a guy who's throwing 90. We'll use that, okay? Is it more important for that 90-mile-an-hour pitcher to try and throw 95, or is it more important for that 90-mile-an-hour pitcher to have better command? How's that?
Yeah, so definitely having better command, and that's one thing that we've had extensive conversations with some of our guys here. Is we're really big on striking guys out, and striking out guys is outstanding. Don't get me wrong there. I would never want the ball to get put in play because I love strikeouts that much.
Right.
However, there's that fine line of, yeah, you have great stuff, but you can't get guys out. So the point of the game is to get guys out and to execute pitches, right? And part of that, obviously, yeah, is velocity. So, from a command is a huge component. However, the velocity piece, it does open up some eyes and will get you in the door at some places as well. But there is the fine line of being able to, first and foremost, have great stuff, but you also have to be able to command it too, because we've known guys that have gone out there with unbelievable stuff and they couldn't get outs because they can't throw strikes.
Right.
So coming where I came from, the big component was being able to command the zone, because we're playing at altitude at 7,200 feet where you walk a guy or you hit a guy and then you give up the double, then you give up the home run. That's where the big crooked numbers come. So you have to toe that fine line of being able to have really good stuff while also being able to command the zone as well.
Right. So, I mean, really, I think that kind of, if I put it to you this way, would you rather take a guy that throws the ball 95 miles an hour and, has so-so command, okay, or a guy that's 90, 91 that has very good command?
I would say 90, 91 that has good command.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because, again, like I said, the younger guys, and I understand it, they're trying to get that velocity up because they want to be seen. And, again, they want to get a guy like you. They want your attention. You see a guy, a young kid, high school junior, throwing 92 miles an hour. Your radar's going up, right? You want to see this kid. But I guess what I'm trying to say is what we see a lot are kids that are trying to throw the ball through a brick wall. Meanwhile, to your point, they can't command their pitches. And they may only have like their fastball and maybe a breaking ball. Right, they don't have a 3-pitch mix. We try to get them to develop a changeup, and that leads me right into my next question: is how important is the changeup?
Oh, at this level, you need to be able to command a changeup, and that's actually one of the pitches that's the most underdeveloped in high school, especially for kids that are coming to our level, just because the majority of them are extremely hard throwers, and there's no point to throw a changeup to high schoolers, especially when you're one of the harder throwers, just because you don't want to speed up a bat. So, yeah, being able to command the changeup is huge at this level. And honestly, it's probably the biggest pitch and the pitch that we've seen the most success with at this level, just because it's easy. It makes it a lot easier to keep guys off balance, especially if you could tunnel it well off of your fastball.
Right. And, I just had a question that went right out of my head. Oh, I know what it is. And how early would you say that coaches should start working with, young baseball players on their changeup?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think, first and foremost, the big one for young baseball players is you have to be able to throw your fastball and command your fastball. I think once a kid understands that and can move the fastball to both sides of the plate, is when you start developing the changeup. So it's not like, oh, hey, at 8 years old, you should do this. I think it's all dictated on how they throw their fastball. I think it's dictated on how they move. I'm not going to talk about mechanics at all with an 8-year-old, but how they move. and the amount of strikes that they throw with their fastball before they start working on definitely throwing a changeup.
Interesting. Yeah, because what I'll do is I'll take my players and, through any of our throwing routines, my pitchers, they all do all their throwing with a changeup grip. Now you're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old players. And I feel that the reason why I do it is because, again, most of them haven't done it. They really don't. And I want them to get comfortable with that grip so that they can, eventually when it comes time, like you said, when they can command that fastball and we're going to move to that grip is not foreign to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Our guys actually play catch with it on a daily basis. Usually I've had guys long toss with it. More recently, I've had guys at around 90 feet when they're coming in start alternating fastball changeup just to keep the arm speed up and try to reach their partner. And then certainly at 60 feet, our guys will actually work it with a slide step.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think anybody we've talked to has talked about doing long toss with different grips. That's interesting.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you just mentioned that, and I recently, and when I say recently, I mean within the last month, read something about what you just said about long tossing with a change-up grip, and I'd never heard it before, and it was something that I'm interested in, so I'm kind of glad you brought it up because another tool I could put in the box.
No doubt, and like I said, we used to try to go out to like 120, 150 feet. However, I felt like guys' deliveries were not repeating to what they do on the mound. But I did think that at around 90 feet, that guys were able to stay on top. They were able to work on their delivery, being able to repeat it, and then being able to repeat their arm action at 90 feet to get it to their partner.
Now, this may seem like a silly question, but you're talking about, repeating movements, have a repeated delivery. How hard is that to get players to have that?
It's one of the more difficult things, especially at this level. But I think like for us with our development program and how much our guys throw, how much they're working out of their delivery, how much they're actually getting on the mound, it's something that's definitely not foreign to them. The one thing that was really eye-opening to me this year was I heard somebody say that your delivery is, you will never have the same delivery twice. You will never have the same delivery twice. However, our job as coaches and their job as players is to try to repeat that or get as close as you can to repeating that delivery as many times as possible. Yeah. So it's something that's extremely, extremely difficult. But I think the more that the kids are throwing and the more that the kids are on the mound will help them be able to repeat more often.
Yeah, because I know how difficult it is. That's why I asked the question. It's not an easy thing to do. Let's face it. I forgot who it was, and I'm going to try and think of the quote. Oh, I can't remember who it was, but anyway, he said, "I can't sign my name the same way twice. Mm-hmm. How can I repeat my pitching delivery twice?" And I wish I could remember who said it, but to me, it made all the sense in the world.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you alluded to right there, it's extremely difficult to do.
Yeah.
How much do you do in terms of tape review? Showing the players this is what you did in this situation, or this is, when you were throwing your curve, here's how your motion was, here's where we want it to be. Is that come into play much?
So it hasn't in years past, and coming from the Air Force Academy, we were extremely limited on time in terms of what those kids were doing off the field. It's something I definitely want to get into more here, especially because we have the technology and we have the resources to do it. I think it's more dependent on the kid, because there could be a kid that could look at some video and it could be a little bit of paralysis by analysis and they want to break down everything. But then there's also kids where they can get some good visual feedback and get some good visual cues of, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're trying to do it. And they can see that. So I think understanding the type of kid that you're working with is the biggest part in in going over video. And it's definitely something, like I said, I want to get into more here at BC now that we have the time and resources to do it.
Yeah, it just seems like, because that's something obviously everybody in the world at this point basically has at least rudimentary services with their phone. Mm-hmm. That, you know, mom and dad can just sit there and record them and be able to watch it afterwards. But having somebody that knows what they're looking at, obviously that's the other half of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And phone video is great. You know, you could take 2 seconds and you can get a couple pitches there, and you can have a little bit of a video session. But yeah, no, we, you know, for us with high speed cameras and the amount of cameras that we have here, it's something that I think we can really dive into and really continue to make our guys better.
Now I'm going to ask you, we kind of got into it a little bit, but I want to know your opinion on this. We talked about long toss and how, well, we really didn't get into it, but how long toss will strengthen your arm and you know, is a daily routine, or not a daily, but a part of a pitcher's routine. How do you feel about weighted balls?
I think weighted balls, if used properly, are unbelievable. We've been using weighted balls. I'm trying to think now. I might be dating myself, but I think we started using them back in 2015. And I did a lot of research on it. I was a little suspect at first. However, we've seen guys' velocities go up, and that's what's cool right now.
Right.
However, people think that if you throw weighted balls, that you're more susceptible to injury, where in fact we've had minimal injuries. In fact, we've seen guys' arms get stronger. They get into better positions because of the way in which they need to throw the weighted balls. They get into safer positions. So our injuries have actually went down significantly over the past 8 years, 9 years that we've been doing it.
So is it because is like a combination of the training methods? You're combining the long toss and the weight balls. Am I correct?
Correct.
So you're combining both of them. So do you think that maybe that has, in other words, if somebody only focused 100% on throwing, you know, using weighted balls, maybe that's not such a good thing, but maybe the combination of the two, do you think that has something to do with it?
I think if you're using the weighted balls correctly and you have somebody that's a professional that understands, first and foremost, your delivery, your arm path, it's definitely beneficial. Like I do think that there is a little bit of a combination of the both. However, I do think from a mound blending standpoint that a lot of the drills in which we do here have definitely translated to higher velocities and being able to repeat your delivery more often.
Okay. Would you say that there is like an age limit, a point where you should not be using weighted balls? In other words, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old players, your guys are a little bit more advanced. They're a little bit more mature. And, you know, they most of them probably, you know, stop growing at that point.
For sure. Yeah, I would say when the body starts to mature a little bit. So I surely wouldn't be throwing like a 11 or 12-year-old on a weighted baseball program, because I think that they have other things that they should be more interested in than throwing weighted baseballs. However, I think like high school age, you know, depending on the body type and depending on what that individual needs. But I do think like once somebody has a pretty solid ground foundation of what they're doing in their delivery and is looking to develop some arm strength, it would probably be in high school.
Okay. Give us a little bit of an idea of like what your recruiting process is.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Our recruiting process will usually start junior year or the summer going into their junior year of high school. We'll identify kids at various events, here at BC, we're really trying to target the Northeast and more so New England, and then branch out from there. When I was at the Air Force Academy, we would do all the huge events in Atlanta and Hoover, Alabama, and Dallas and Arizona, just because we had to cast such a wide net. But for us, we here at BC, obviously we want to, keep the good kids from New England from our backyard here. So we'll obviously cover all the events that are here. However, we'll also go to some of the bigger events down south, just to try to cover basically the whole East Coast. So that we'll identify guys usually as juniors, and then try to get on the phone with them starting on September 1st, and develop relationships with them and continue to evaluate. And if they're a kid that we think we need to offer, we can offer them once they get up here on campus. So we'll do official visits, we'll do unofficial visits, just kind of whatever, to showcase what we have and how we're going to make them better and our vision for the program.
Is that like all hands on deck in terms of the coaching staff there? Everybody kind of gets involved?
Yes. So we're actually able to have 3 guys that are able to go out and recruit on the road. And those are the same guys that are able to actually call and initiate contact with recruits as well.
Got to be hard to get kids from the South to want to come to Boston to play baseball.
Believe it or not, we've gotten actually a lot of interest from kids down south, in terms of they want to receive a world-class education while they're here and play baseball at the highest possible level. Yeah. And that was one thing when I took this job that was honestly like kind of the deciding factor, is the fact of the reputation of the degree that these kids are getting from Boston College. It's world renowned. And then on top of that, you get to play baseball in the ACC.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking more about the weather because I know me.
Oh yeah. The weather's tough. Yeah. You got to give some to take some there too. So
yeah, I can't wait to get out of the Northeast. Spring baseball kills me.
Oh, I'm fully prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, summer baseball in, Alabama isn't sounding so attractive these days either.
No, it's definitely not. It's really hot.
110 degrees and 100% humidity.
I would still rather suffer through that than freezing my butt off every March and April, where we had a game this past spring that literally I could not stop shivering. I just couldn't. I know I had on layers upon layers, a coat, and I just couldn't stop shivering. I was in the dugout shivering. I don't want to do that anymore.
And the one thing we're fortunate is there's heaters in our dugout. And for me as the pitching coach, if I'm coming out of the dugout, it's really not a good situation. So I try to stay in the dugout as much as possible.
Right. Yeah. But, and that's interesting you say that, because this game that I'm talking about, we were playing at Fordham, and Fordham's dugouts are not heated. So they need to do something over there.
Yeah.
One more pitch for Boston College.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's in terms of recruiting, what's your team's scholarship situation? How many players do you have? How many scholarships do you typically have? How does that work?
Yeah. So for all of Division I, the max amount of scholarships that a school can have is 11.7 scholarships for their entire team. And this year, and I'm not sure what it's going to be moving forward, we're allotted 40 kids on the roster. So if you're a baseball player and think you're going to get a full ride scholarship, you're probably not, unless you're Mike Trout. So the minimum scholarship we can offer is a 25% scholarship. Yeah. So we have to be really creative in terms of how we're divvying out that money. Financial aid's a big one for us, and then also academics as well. The biggest is academics in terms of trying to get some academic money, but academics is a big part in terms of you're gonna open more doors depending on how good your grades are.
Yeah.
So you got to really take care of it in the classroom first, because if you're not doing well in the classroom, you're going to really limit yourself to where you're able to go.
I love it because we've had plenty of coaches on college coaches, whether it be small schools or bigger schools, and they all say the same thing. You gotta have the grades. And, the kids, Jimmy and I are both JV coaches. A lot of times when we talk to them about stuff like that, I feel like we're just like the teacher or like the parent, just trying to say something that, maybe isn't true, but, I got to get your grades up. As long as I have a C average, I'm good. I can play. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that's not going to cut it.
No. Yeah. You got to take care of the classroom first and be a true student athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that we hammer home at our school. But it's actually playing penalties if your grades are not good. So I'm sure that once or twice it happens to a player where, they get on academic probation and they can't play, it's going to sink in pretty quick.
No doubt.
Now, the image I think a lot of people have is that, like you said earlier, like everybody on a Division I school is full scholarship, right? And obviously that's not the case. You basically have, I'm going to say almost none, because you said unless you're Mike Trout, but Trout's probably he's going straight to the majors without going to college. So, right. So you're almost never going to you're not going to have very many full, if any at all, on each team. So you've got this group of essentially most of them are, I call them walk-ons. I assume they got some kind of an invite to come and play with you guys, but how do you pare that down for something like fall ball when you're just starting up with the kids even getting to school?
Yeah, so fall ball is a huge time for us from a development standpoint, and then it's also huge for us in terms of an evaluation standpoint and what we're going to do moving into the spring. So for us, it's a lot. It's in my opinion, the fall is the best time as a coach. I remember thinking back when I was a player, I was like, man, the fall really sucks. The grind. But for me as a coach, it's honestly my favorite time, just because this is where we can really get into the nitty gritty. We could develop guys. We can make changes if needed. And then also too, we have to evaluate guys and understand what we have going into the spring. So it's honestly my favorite time of the year. And then what we do after the fall is we go into an individual period in which that's where we really address what their needs are in terms of how they're going to be able to be a guy that can make an impact for us. So from a pitching standpoint, we might put a guy in a velo program. We might put him on a pitch design program. We might put him on, hey, you didn't throw a lot of strikes. We're going to work on commanding the baseball a little bit better. So that's where we can really get down to the real individual needs of each guy.
Yeah, it sounds very similar. I mean, that's the way we run our fall program. Our fall program is more, we'll say, it's more developmental, definitely more developmental than any other time of the year. And what we used to do is play a fall schedule. We don't do that anymore. Now what we do is we play maybe 6 games against other schools, but the majority of the time is spent with inner squads. This way everybody's getting at bats, everybody's getting on the mound, everybody's getting reps. So yeah, the fall is a great time.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I've really enjoyed so far being here, obviously today being day one, we play everything from a competitive standpoint. So we had 6 innings of baseball to play today, and we had 3 guys throw 2 innings each on each side, and we basically played 2-inning sets. And it was pitcher from the home team versus pitcher from the away team for 2 innings, and then obviously the lowest score wins that set. So we play it as the 8th or the 9th inning of a game in each set. So there's a lot of pressure on it. Unfortunately, today there was no real close scores. I think it was 3-0, 3-0, and then 5-1 or something. But I could see it hey, it's the bottom of the 9th and your team's down 1-0. Guys are getting into it.
Yeah.
And it's set 2. and we'll go best 2 out of 3. And that's just the way in which we try to make it a little bit more competitive here as well.
Actually, I like that. I might steal that.
It's great. Yeah, it was great.
How would you describe your style of coaching? Would you say that you are more transactional or you're more transformational as a coach?
I would hope transformational, because my job as a coach is a heck of a lot bigger than what just goes on between the white lines. I want to be the best role model and mentor for these kids to develop them into the best person that they can be upon graduation from this place. I got 3 pillars that I told these guys that I'm going to guarantee them. And I said, baseball is going to take care of itself. I think we have an outstanding development program. Guys are certainly going to get better, but there's 3 things I'm going to guarantee you. I'm going to make you a great man, a great husband, and a great father. And if I'm failing to do that, I'm not doing my job.
So give us a little idea. I mean, how would you handle, I don't know, let's say a player who's just broke up with his girlfriend, down in the dumps, okay?
Sure.
How would you handle that?
Yeah, well, hopefully if I'm doing my job, he would know that I'm here for him as a person that he can rely on and talk to, and just be there to listen to what his needs are, and understand that we've all been through something like that of some sort, and understand too, like, hey, there's more to life too.
Yeah. I
don't know if that really answered your
question. No.
question.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, because again, it's a hard thing to describe, and yeah, if you asked me to explain it, I would probably explain where, and I'll use this example because this happened just a year or so ago, where a player was young kid, not a college age kid. He was I think he was maybe a freshman in high school. He was going through a tough time, and his grandfather had passed away. There were a lot of things that were going on, and he came to me and said, "Coach, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Absolutely. What's going on?" We sat down, and all I did was listen. I really didn't say much. I just let him talk.
Should be a love, and there should be a care for the kids that you're coaching.
Yeah,
and there should be a genuine relationship between the player and the coach. Obviously, there are going to be some tough times where you're going to have to get up in them a little bit and rip them a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. But it's for the benefit of the player, and it's only developing them as a man and, a person of better character as well.
Right, because I'm a big believer in this, and this is actually my style of coaching. Yeah, I'll get in your face. Yeah, I will get on you. But later on, let's say, kid misses a sign, because that's usually one of my biggest pet peeves. I will get on him, for that. But later on, I'll put my arm around him and say to him, "Hey, bud, come on. You're better than that. There's no reason for you," that type of thing, where you can mix a little bit of being a hard-nosed guy on them, but also let them know that you love them. And usually you get good results.
Absolutely. And my thing with the kids here is, if the kids know that you love and you care about them, they will do anything for you.
Yes.
But they have to know that, and they have to see that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I'm sorry, this is your first or second year with BC?
This is my first year. I've been here for about a month.
Okay, for about a month. So let's talk a little bit about that. As somebody that, and like when Jimmy joined his school, he had, as the head JV coach, he wasn't promoted from another coach. He was in as an outsider. So you're in as an outsider. Some of these kids have been there for 2-3 years already. So what do you think's the best approach to try to get the trust level up?
Yeah, I think the best is, coming in and learning and talking to them about their past experiences on the baseball field, being clear and concise about what your vision is for them in the program, and then just being able to develop those relationships. It's not going to happen overnight. It's something that It does take a little bit of time to cultivate those relationships. But I think like just being able to come in and don't come in guns a-blazing saying this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. Obviously listening to them and see what works for them and or what's worked for them in the past and say, give them suggestions on, what some things you think that might make them better and go from there.
I was curious at the bigger schools, again, like we talked about, like how your fall ball program is set up. I mean, I know it's geared more towards the developmental and being able to actually work with the kids and something Jimmy and I talk about even at our level is during the season. I mean, when you're playing 4 games a week and with us with rainouts and other things, it turns into 5 games a week real easy. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to actually work on individual stuff. So that, the fall is very, very important for that. So is your fall ball program kind of setting the stage in terms of, are you already more or less making decisions on what the spring team is going to look like?
I would say yes. In terms of we're seeing what guys have. We're understanding what guys are coming back that were in the lineup last year. Certainly a lot can happen between November and January 15th when guys get back. But at least we will have a good idea in January when guys get back of what our lineups should look like, what our rotation should look like. And then between January 15th and I think it's like February 18th, in which we open up this year, is when we'll really evaluate where guys are at and what's going to go on in the spring. But yeah, it's a precursor basically to what our spring season will look like.
Right. And somebody's really going to have to wow you in January in order to probably climb up the ladder significantly, or somebody's going to have to really disappoint you, to open a spot. Right.
Absolutely.
This has been a great conversation. I think we could take a lot out of this. We got some different information on what maybe is some of the newer training methodologies and philosophies that you talked about in terms of the pitchers taking care of their arms, taking care of their bodies. I love all that. Do you want to give out any of your contact info if people want to get in touch with you? Obviously, going to play for a school like BC is huge, and us being in the Northeast, anybody you're going to have to be at a very high level. But if they can, get some interest from you, I'm sure that some of our people would be thrilled to get an opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, you can give my email out. However, your listeners will have to understand that there are some NCAA rules in which if they email me and they're basically a freshman or sophomore in high school, I can't respond to them. The only thing I could talk to them about is camp. So nothing about like, hey, this is where your kid needs to get better and we want to recruit your kid. That's all I could talk about. But juniors and seniors, certainly.
Excellent. All right. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time, especially now. I know it's a very, very busy time with you guys just kind of getting up and running with the fall ball program. Know how valuable your time is. Really appreciate you taking a few minutes and talking with us here tonight, Ryan. We really enjoyed it. I think our listeners are going to get an awful lot out of this and can't thank you enough for coming on board.
I appreciate you having me on. And if you ever need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'd love to get back on and chat with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I mean, I really appreciate it. It came up kind of quick. Jonathan put this all together within a couple of minutes, which shocked me. So I'm glad. And like Dave said, I think it was a great show, a lot of information. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line we'll bring you back on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with the rest of the fall ball. And let's go Eagles in the spring, huh?
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Go Eagles.
All right. Take it easy.
Take care.
And there you have it. There was our chat with Ryan Forrest, pitching coach from Boston College. Really want to thank him for coming on board with us. I know I got a lot out of the conversation. What'd you think, Coach?
Yeah, me too, Dave. I mean, like I said in the beginning of the show about being a common theme, it was interesting to listen to another pitching coach and see what his train of thought was. I mean, I don't want to say everything is the same, but they kind of have that same train of thought and their training methods, in terms of long toss. And we talked about grips. We talked about, repeating delivery and stuff like that. And, really, I guess that your training methods are probably going to vary from coach to coach. But what we're trying to work on, I guess, pretty much stays the same. The one thing that did get me was when he talked about weighted balls. I believe that he's the first person that I've ever talked to that had a positive opinion of weighted balls, and I'm more interested in that because, again, coach of that caliber, Air Force Academy, Boston College, and he believes in it. Well, there's something there that maybe I should look into.
Well, yeah, I think it's probably like anything else. It's balancing out. That's not something that you're going to sit there and do for an hour or anything like that. But it's also just making sure you're doing it the right way. If your throwing motion is, not ideal and you add weight to it, if your throwing motion is such that you're going to be more likely to have these problems that we keep seeing these younger and younger players have with the Tommy John surgeries and the rotator cuff injuries, well, obviously adding weighted balls to that probably isn't going to help a whole hell of a lot. But if we can get the proper arm angle and motions down, then you add the weighted balls to strengthen those muscles and ligaments, then, it seems like that would make sense.
Yeah, and you actually touched on it a little bit because that's my greatest fear is knowing the correct way to train players with it, okay? Because I don't. I really don't. I've never done it, and there's no way that I'm just going to jump into something that I don't know much about and start doing it because of the fear of injuring a player and doing something wrong that is going to be detrimental. So, I got my homework to do.
Yeah, well, and that's what we talk about all the time is never being set in your ways, being open to other ideas. It doesn't mean that the other ideas are necessarily going to be great or work for everybody, but you want to be open to finding out about new things. And that's one of the core kind of policies of this show is keeping your eyes open and being ready to listen to other ideas. And then you do your research and see if it's something that you believe in, great. If not, like you said, if he's the first coach or trainer that has talked positively about him, that means there's plenty of people that don't like him. So you never know until you get in there and kind of try it for yourself and see what the positive impacts of something like that could be.
Absolutely. I mean, an open mind is so damn important. Being a lifelong learner, again, we talk about it all the time. You have to, and this is a great example of where, do the research, read what I have to read. Who knows? I may still say that, what, I don't like it, or I may say, hey, this is something I think could benefit my players, and let's introduce it. But either way, it's all about trying to make the players better.
All right. So hope you guys did enjoy that conversation. Like I said, we went in a couple of different directions than what we have been going in. So I like that. And if you'd like to get in touch with him, you're going to reach out to him. He said Twitter is the best way, and that's at Coach Forrest 14. That's Forrest with 2 R's, at Coach Forrest 14. There are a bunch of Coach Forrests out there, so make sure that you hit it the right one. You'll see right in his bio, he's the assistant coach at Boston College, obviously a premier college up here in the Northeast. So a wealth of good information and somebody good especially for our younger listeners or the parents of younger listeners to keep in touch with, as he is big advocate of arm health and arm strength. So great information to have on there. Also, don't forget to reach out to us. We are at the CTB Show on Twitter. We are clearing the bases at gmail.com. Go ahead and reach out to us. You want to give us some feedback on the show, we'd love to hear it. Give us a rate and a review on the Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you're hearing us. We do appreciate that. And as all of our guests would agree with, make sure you're keeping a positive attitude, PMA, put 100% effort into everything you do, and good things will follow. Final thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, I think that it was good to get into a little bit of pitching from, a coach with Ryan's background and with his knowledge. And, I believe there was a lot of good stuff in there that people could take away from it. And we spoke with Ryan about being a transformational coach as opposed to being a transactional coach. So we know that Ryan definitely knows that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.